Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of the MUFC Daily, and you're very, very welcome. The only place for ex-legends is in directors' boxes. They should have no say on how the club is run. They should have no knowledge about what the club's up to. Those days have to be done, and it's looking like the Glazers, Ed, and the director of football, John Murtagh, have learnt that lesson very quickly. You see, people like Rio Ferdinand, Patrice Evra, who said that crap on Amazon Sport last week. All these people are creating a platform from being ex-players. They're pundits, they make money. You understand that they don't care. They don't care about what we care about. We care about the club, if it wins or loses. When you see Rio Ferdinand going like that on BT Sport, it's not genuine. He's a businessman. He was a great footballer. And it's something as a fandom we've got to understand. And this was the problem that divided the fandom over Ollie. It's one thing to be a good, legendary, iconic footballer for the club, and that's right, and that deserves respect. Not too much respect where you become deaf, dumb and blind, but respect. But if they take on a new role within the club, you've got to judge them for that role. That's the first point I wanted to make today. But also, in terms of Patrice Evra and his comments on Amazon's coverage of football last week, when he spoke about Ralph Rangnick, him being worried about his revival, what's going to happen to Manchester United's DNA. And you know, I'm thinking, and I think a lot of us are thinking, hang on a minute, we've had 3 years of so-called Manchester United DNA. Hasn't really worked, has it? So I think there is a legends problem. And I think when I talk to other Manchester United fans out there, I see that concern amongst you. There's a little bit of corruption going on with them. They're here to make money. They're not here to break bread with us. They're here to take advantage of us, because fans of anything are pure and naive. We will buy anything, we will buy into anything, as long as people pat us on the head and say, you're the fans, you're important. You know, they don't really believe that we're important, but they'll say that, just so we follow them, so they can play the flute and follow them. Think about all these Manchester United legends and what they said about Ollie, what they said about the other managers. Every time a manager's been under pressure since Sir Alex left, they've blamed the players. They blame the players. Think about this for a minute. Footballers blaming footballers and acting like none of these managers were to blame at all. Do you think it's somewhat coincidental that they always blame the players and never the manager? Never Moyes, never LVG, never Mourinho, and never Ollie. We've been here so many times. The excuses they were making for Ollie, they were making for the other managers. Why? Because they're bought and paid for by the club. These are people that you shouldn't be following, whose blogs you shouldn't be reading or whatever, even if they do video blogs. Don't listen to what they're saying. It's up to you entirely who you follow in the world. But these people can't be trusted. Their opinions can't be trusted, because when Patrice Evra questions the appointment of a professor of football, the man who literally made the Chelsea manager a manager, who inspired Jurgen Klopp and many other coaches as well. And we hear things like, well, what has he won? And it's like being down the pub with the local pier. Yeah, what's he won, mate? What's he won? He's won some trophies, but that's not the point. His achievements of building clubs from the bottom. He has the ability to build Manchester United into an empire again, then hand it over to the right hands. We can get right what we got wrong when Fergie left. Fergie was looking for a puppet in David Moyes so he could control the club. That's all Fergie cared about. It wasn't a genuine care for the club at the end. He loved the club while he was the manager, but in the end, all he cared about was his legacy and holding on to control. Because when you get as old as Fergie, you want to hold on to control. He was the emperor of this club, and he didn't want to let that go. And Moyes was the way he was going to control things. Ultimately, it was an utter disaster because he didn't even know. You know, like in those films when there's a kind of villain, but then he starts talking to the boss villain. And the boss villain goes, "You have failed me, number 2. Goodbye." It's a bit like what happened between Fergie and Moyes there. So, what we need to get right now, we're getting it right with Ralf Rangnick now, is allow this man to build the empire and then allow him, because I believe genuinely Ralf will choose the right person to take over, and that will be his whole legacy, and he'll be happy with that. So we've done absolutely the right thing, but yes, the man's only human. He will lose games sometimes, and yes, he will make mistakes, but mostly you're going to be on a fucking exciting ride, as I am. And to question this man's CV is as disrespectful as me trying to say that Sir Alex wasn't a great iconic manager. He obviously was, right? There's actually no difference between Ralf Rangnick's iconic legacy in football than Sir Alex. Sir Alex won loads of huge elite trophies, more than Ralph's ever done, and maybe ever will. Hopefully he can get to win some big elite trophies at United. But in terms of achievements, of building clubs, of footballing knowledge, they're on an equal footing. There's no question about that. The time for DNA, the only DNA you and me should care about is our style of play, and that we, keep Manchester United remembering the Munich disaster and how the club was built back by Sir Matt Busby and his assistant. That was heroic. It's an amazing story, and how we lost those players tragically. These are things we should never forget. We're not celebrating what those people went through and what Sir Matt went through. We're not celebrating it, but what we're doing is we're remembering. We're remembering because we're forged by the Munich air crash. That's what forges this club. So when you get idiots, opposition fans, trying to make fun of us by doing the wings of a plane and things like that, take it on the chin. Because from the ashes of that disaster came what Manchester United was under Sir Alex and under Sir Matt. Sir Matt built the club after nearly dying from being in the tragedy. That's heroic. If you wrote a film about that and didn't know about this history, you think, fucking hell, that would never happen in real life. It did. He didn't see a psychiatrist after he went through all that. He got out and he rebuilt the club. What a brave man. What an amazing man. He is our greatest manager. Sorry, Sir Alex. Sir Matt is the greatest just for what he did. Rebuilding the club after what he went through. Losing as much as he did. And that's what's important. That's Manchester United DNA. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is only Manchester United DNA in the sense that he played for us. And played really well for us. And scored one of the most famous goals in the club's history that basically led us to winning the treble. I'm grateful, Ollie, but in terms of a manager, you were dishonest, you were manipulative, you did the wrong things, and you lied to us about what football you were going to play and so many other things. You lied to players about playing them, they're not playing them. You wasn't a good manager, Ollie. You were a fucking accident, you were a calamity, I'm sorry. But as a striker, yeah, one of the great strikers of my lifetime. No question, and I respect you for that. So we've got to forget about these legends, apart from what they did on the pitch, right? We respect you, but goodbye, go into the director's box and shut the fuck up, please, because we've had enough. We're not going to be manipulated by you. And it's not your fault you're taking the money from the club to say certain things the club want you to say. I understand. I'd probably take the money and do the same thing. Who fucking wouldn't, right? But it's not worth listening to any of you. I mean, Paul Scholes at least kind of seems to have a genuine opinion, which is interesting, which is great, and everything he was saying about the Ollie era came to pass. But mostly, these are just puppets for the club, and it really isn't worth, listening to them. The pub used them as a mouthpiece because they think we'd never question them. But you don't know football fans very well, do you, Manchester United? Football fans will turn on these legends, are turning on these legends. Especially people like Patrice Evra, who spoke utter shit last week. Because our respect and our loyalty right now is to Ralf Rangnick. Because we know, we wanted him. Think about this for a minute. You can criticise the club in other ways. They knew we wanted Ralf Rangnick. They went and got Ralf Rangnick. This was the best choice at this moment. It's exactly what we need. It's a fresh look. It's a brand new, fresh start. And I believe he's going to rebuild the Manchester United empire. This has been the MUFC Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And I'll see you again tomorrow with even more MUFC Daily. Until then, goodbye.